Dr. Andrew Fox, thank you so much for joining us today at CBN and Faithwire, and also Hal Frampton, an ADF attorney who's representing Dr. Fox. Thank you too for being here as well. Dr. Fox, I want to start, before we get into the issue that's making headlines, that's kind of turned you into an overnight household name. How is it that you came to the United States? And, this more than 20 years ago now.
Yes, thank you for, first of all, for allowing us to share our story here. Yes, 23 years ago, I came to the United States. I was a pastor in Great Britain in a small parish in the southwest of England, and through a set of relationships was invited to come and teach and preach over here in the States, which led to an invitation to relocate. So I came in as on a religious worker's visa, and that quickly became the permanent residence card, and then finally a citizen of the United States, along with my whole family. So the whole purpose of me being here is the Christian lens, the Christian ministry, the Christian voice, for no other reason than that. And for 23 years, I've enjoyed that kind of opportunity.
And now, the issue that has made headlines, of course, is your position for nearly a decade as a chaplain for the Austin Fire Department. Now, you wrote a blog post for people who might not be familiar that got you into a little bit of hot water because you talked about males and females being different. That's an opinion that really shouldn't be controversial, but in 2022, it's become controversial. Specifically, you're talking about sports and males and females competing not on one another's teams athletically. Tell us a bit about the response that you received after that post went public.
Well, the response, like any blog, is varied. My blogs are open for people to comment on, so the responses are either posted in the comment box, or I receive email, text, WhatsApp, and all kinds of messages where people agree, disagree, or somewhere in the middle. But that is the nature of good blogging. It is to engage in civil dialogue over social issues, and in my case, it's through the Christian lens. So the series of blogs that I wrote, yes, did question the validity of someone born male who transitions to become female, who then competes with females as a female. My point was that that is yet another attack on women and the disciplines that they employ in their field of athletics, and it's just unfair. And so I reasoned that out logically, rationally, and offered my thoughts on that subject. And so my views are widely held and broadly believed, not just in the United States, but globally and also historically. So you mentioned recently in 2022, people are believing this and that, but my beliefs come from things that predate the United States, that hail back to when the Bible was put together.
Did you ever anticipate getting this kind of response when you first published this post, that you would be ultimately dismissed from your position as a volunteer chaplain?
No, it was shocking and quite angering, and the way that was done as well was very unprofessional. In fact, my 8 years at the Austin Fire Department had been rewarded and awarded various times by a previous chief for acts of service in providing pastoral care and spiritual counsel for the uniformed personnel, the civilian personnel, and their families indiscriminately and to everyone. And so I was shocked and appalled by what happened all of a sudden.
And Mr. Frampton, I want to bring you into the conversation here as well. Why is it so important that people like Dr. Fox, that Christians who have these sincerely held beliefs, not just cower and back down, but as y'all are doing right now, put forward lawsuits and really take this issue to the public?
Well, the First Amendment guarantees all Americans the right to express themselves freely and the right to exercise their faith. And that's an important constitutional value. Government shouldn't be in the business of canceling people, of terminating them from positions, of punishing them for simply exercising their right to express themselves. And this is something that should concern all Americans, whatever your beliefs. That if the government can be in the business of picking and choosing which beliefs are acceptable, which religions are acceptable, that threatens all of our freedoms. And that's why we are proud to represent Dr. Fox and to have filed the case that we filed.
And what do you hope legally? What are you anticipating legally to be the outcome of this case?
Well, what we've asked for is simply for Dr. Fox to be reinstated to his volunteer position. We're not asking, that position be changed. We just want him out there volunteering and serving the firefighters that he's come to love and to serve for the past 8 years.
Dr. Fox, I know that there are people who could probably respond and say, look, you're a chaplain. There was no reason for you to speak out on this issue. You could have not ruffled any feathers and just kind of stayed in your lane. But as a believer, you know that this speaking out about sexuality, about biblical understanding of sexuality is important. Could you tell us a little bit about why you felt the need to write about this subject in particular?
Well, I think just to echo what Hal has just mentioned, that is my First Amendment right, freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Let's start there. But then practically, I kept my blogging and other publications well away from my responsibilities in the Austin Fire Department. The two are unrelated and unconnected. And so, practically speaking, to bring the two together is not something that I did. So, for instance, if I was on a scene or visiting with a firefighter, how they label themselves in any way, religion or any other expression of labeling, was not something I would inquire about, but I would immediately respond to their request for pastoral guidance and for spiritual help, regardless of how they identify. So for this to be turned around on me was quite remarkable. Now, the need to express my thoughts is a response to the world that we live in today, separate from the fire department. And if people read my blogs, they'll find out that I think they are written with logic and reason, citing a number of people. For instance, the issue of men identifying with women as women, competing against women as a woman. I cite Caitlyn Jenner. I cite other athletes that do not identify as heterosexual, but as something else. So I think they're intelligently written to engage in civil dialogue, not to create an ideology of my own.
Did you ever believe 23 years ago when you left the UK, came to the United States, where of course we have a First Amendment, that this would ever be a position in which you would find yourself?
No. One of the attractions of moving to the United States is you have an outside perspective. Being raised in Great Britain for the first 31 years of my life. And so the country that welcomed me in through due process is not the same country that I find myself living in today in the environment that we live in. So, as Hal said, I do not think it is right for any government agency or entity to dictate to its citizens their beliefs, their thoughts, their concepts, their ideas. That is a violation, and that is why I'm thrilled to be represented by ADF.
And Hal, as we close out this conversation, I want to ask you, for people who want to keep their finger on the pulse of this story and want to get updates and know what's going on, where can they go to follow along?
Well, we've got a page on our website, www.adflegal.org, with an explainer on Dr. Fox's case with key documents, and we'll keep that updated.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for taking a few minutes to talk with us. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.